How's it going, everybody? This is Dailies to Downloads. My name is Chad. With me, as always, is Eric and his
Yeah.
facial hair as well.
It grows.
And
Until we get a vaccine, I'm not shaving any. I'm letting my hair grow out. I'm letting the beard grow out.
well, we'll all be anxious to see what happens as long as this goes. I think we're going to be the doing that for a while. So,
Well, next year, hey, look. I mean, all I have are Zoom calls. It's fine.
well, tonight we are going to be talking about Chadwick Boseman, who sadly passed recently. And we both thought it would be good to just talk a little bit about his career, and which was unfortunately cut way too short. He was born November 29th, 1976, in South Carolina, and he originally studied directing at Howard University, and he got into acting, a lot the way a lot of actors do. He started doing stints on television shows. There's a lot of shows that he's done, over the years that I watched, and I never realized he was in. I guess that's usually the case with an actor who gets famous. You look back and you're like, oh wow, he was in that episode. He was in Castle, among other things, and the soap opera. But his breakout movie role was 42, which was the biopic about Jackie Robinson. And to be honest, that's the first movie I noticed him in. How about you, Eric?
Definitely the first movie. It's kind of incredible just looking through his other credits. That may have been like his first or second feature film at all. Definitely his first lead, but like in terms of it was like almost all TV, and then 42. Yeah, so that was definitely my first experience as well.
Yeah. So, he was born to a mother, Caroline, and his father's name was Leroy. His mom was a nurse. His dad worked in a textile factory, and, they saved a lot to have him, work on acting and go to school for directing. And he ended up getting a break, eventually, and did a lot of those shows, and eventually got to be the point where he did a lot of biopics. I think for a while there he became known as the guy who did a lot of biopics. He even did them up until his death. Like the last one he did was Marshall, which I haven't seen, but I did see Get On Up, which was about James Brown. That was very good. And I, what I like about him is that I always found Chadwick Boseman to be a very understated actor. He was a leading man, for sure, a leading man, but in a very reserved way. He wasn't showy. I think that maybe that's other than just being talented, that's one of the reasons why he would get these biopic parts, because you know it would focus a lot on these figures' lives, but like he's a very workman-like actor, and I mean that in the as a high compliment. Like he gets to set, it seems he does his job. He's not overly showy or ostentatious, but he does his job and he does it in a good way. And what makes his passing sad is the fact that he has only improved over the years. He was only getting better. He was only getting bigger roles, which makes the whole situation unfortunate. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think also with him, like it's hard to just describe some of his performances, or I guess what attracted people necessarily to him as an actor, because I think it is very almost like chameleon like you said, he's born in South Carolina, and but like if you would have told me that he was from the UK or something like that, like I would have believed that as well, and that he was. I haven't really. I've watched a few interviews with him, but I wouldn't be able to like place where he's from, right, I guess. But
He did study in London.
did he? Oh, I just
Yeah, I think from if I remember correctly, what I read, his parents had saved so he could go to study in London, but I think originally it was directing. But
okay.
yeah,
It definitely seems like, at least just going off of like his voice and that kind of stuff, like for me it would be like hard to place where he would be from, and I guess that's also why. And of course, I believe he kind of fought for when Black Panther was being shot to like have that accent that he apparently uses in the film, and so he was again, you could kind of like very chameleon like, and I think that was also something that worked for him and why he was probably so easily cast. Because I think with certain actors, you might get pigeonholed into a certain kind of role. And with him, and I mean, they definitely tried. Like, did you see 21 Bridges last year?
What's funny is that, so
Yeah.
I'm in a lot of digital code groups online. And so, like, I'll get digital codes and I'll add them to my streaming libraries. I actually got 21 Bridges this week,
Okay.
hoping to watch it, at some point because, it being one of his last films, I wanted to check it out. Now, on the surface, aside from the fact that he passed, like, it looks like kind of your basic,
Yeah.
kind of gritty cop movie. So, like, I don't know how good it's going to be, but I was curious to see it just based on the fact that this is a guy who had colon cancer since 2016 and kept it private, which is very much his right, and kept working, which, you know, I can't imagine what it was like to do that, to go to sets every day and, do whatever was required of him being sick. And, and I guess there were photos from what I read online. There were photos over the past couple of years about him getting thinner, and I guess people weren't very kind, which is,
The internet.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
And because he had lost all that weight, and it's just a lot of courage, a lot of heart and passion he obviously had, and it's the fact that he was able to film some of these movies while having that horrible disease is a
Yeah.
testament to his drive.
Yeah, and I wonder too, like, it's hard to think of another example. Maybe I have to really rack my brain to think of another example of this certain kind of situation where the death was unfortunately impending. I mean, luckily it was delayed for several years, where he kind of had his career peak. But um, I don't know how much you can do for how many years before you might lose that battle. But I think it's also interesting that yes, he definitely wanted to keep it private, and I also can't imagine that the stigma that may have come. Like, would Disney have even wanted him to be a part of a new franchise and to lead a new franchise, within the Marvel world, if they would have known this? And I think now it's coming out that the Disney top brass and even Ryan Coogler, who they have a very strong relationship with, like, didn't know. And I wonder if that was, again, it was none of their business, but I also think you'd probably want to keep that close to the chest, because then you may feel like they're not going to want to hire me if they see me as being sick and I could be, gone, because already people are talking about, do we recast this role now? Do we honor him by not recasting it? But
Right.
that's going to lead to issues as well. So
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, it does make you wonder, like, had Disney known, what would have happened there?
yeah,
Would they? I'm sure they would have made changes, along the way. But he was just kind of obviously had the attitude, I'm going to do this. I'm going to live my life to the fullest until I can't anymore. And you know, as far as the Black Panther 2 getting recast, like, I think the site is Screen Rant got into a little bit of hot water. They had posted an article pretty early after the announcement of his passing that basically, whether it was the first article they posted or not, they kind of jumped right to, what's going to happen with Black Panther 2? Will it be recast? Not really giving any time or any sensitivity to
yeah,
what has happened to this guy and his family. And, and at the time, and you know what, even now, who cares?
yeah,
As far as Black Panther 2 goes, like, I'm sure Disney will be able to figure out something, whether it's, now the character in the movie that plays his sister, a lot of people are calling for her to, take the
okay.
lead role, which I'd be fine with. She's great. But there's a bigger picture here.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, absolutely.
it goes beyond, like, oh man, what's the MCU gonna do
Yeah,
now? It's about the fact that this guy kept getting better. He kept improving. His performances, I feel like, got much more nuanced and matured over the years. And he was always kind of a mature actor in a way. But he kept getting better, and it's the fact that now he wasn't able to. He was not able to film any more movies. The last movie he has on the slate is, called Ma Rainey's Black Bottom,
Yeah,
which I believe is going straight to Netflix.
it is. Yeah, that's part of the 10 play, the August Wilson cycle with Fences, and those, like, he did the 10 plays where each is a different decade in
Right.
the 20th century for the African Americans in Pittsburgh. I saw it on Broadway. Anthony Mackie was in the role. Speaking of the MCU, back in when I was in high school, but they've already shot that. So, and speaking of Fences, Viola Davis is back to be a part of this as well. So that, I mean, it's a great work. So it's kind of nice that it's sad to say, but he's like going out on that, which is good. But again, it's different. Yeah, nothing is in limbo. Whereas we think of certain actors like a lot of people bringing up Heath Ledger and things like that. It's a totally different situation.
Yeah, no, this is not related.
No, it's not. It's just like an actor who was
I mean,
tied
yeah,
to
there's a lot of people that left us too soon,
yeah,
but to loop them all into one category isn't,
absolutely, yeah,
isn't really the same thing. And it's sad. I think it's, I'm certainly not a doctor, but I think it's around your 50s that they urge you to go get a colonoscopy. And it's if it's one of those things where, like, if they were pushing people to get them sooner, who knows if he'd be still with us. Unrelated to movies, there was a singer named Ronnie James Dio who passed away many years ago of colon cancer, and the doctor had told some of his friends and family that if he had just gotten one of those done sooner, he'd still be with us today. It's just one of those unfortunate things when you're in your late 30s, early 40s, as he was, Chadwick Boseman. You wouldn't think to get that done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I don't know what the statistics are, but it may, I don't know, may affect people of certain groups more than others. I did a lot of research after the graphic opening of Uncut Gems, just because with a lot of men with the Jewish faith will have colon cancer for different reasons. But yeah, I mean, it's not something that's ever really talked about, and obviously it's a private issue, and usually actors will. I think that's what's also incredible about him is that he usually, I guess, if actors are dealing with cancer or a long impending disease, they will usually just kind of slowly pull back from roles and kind of just like I'm thinking of John Travolta's wife, who also
Right.
recently passed from cancer, right? And like and you hadn't really heard about, not that she was like a star, but she was in movies a lot,
Right.
and she also kind of pulled back a little bit over the past 5 or 6 years, and then you find out that they may have been dealing with something that was life threatening, of course.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I mean, it seems that he didn't pull back at all. I mean, we haven't talked about Defy Bloods, yet,
yeah,
but he had that was a flashback part, but it was certainly a notable part in
yeah.
that movie, and certainly a memorable one. I mean, just the way the character was written, he certainly had a memorable role there, and was very good in it. Despite other feelings I might have about the movie, I liked him in it. I think he does a good job, and I hate to use this as it's somewhat of a critic cliche, but he does a good job of disappearing into roles. I feel like,
Absolutely.
he you don't, even if you don't often, you wouldn't notice him in some of his earlier ones, like he did a part in The Express, which is about Ernie Davis, the football player. He was also in another football movie called Draft Day.
Kevin Costner.
Yep, yeah,
Yeah.
yep. Which both of those were halfway decent, average flicks. But I can never complain about one of his performances. Really, he always kind of did his job and did it well.
Yeah, and it's kind of one thing that someone else had pointed out right after the news of his passing. That's kind of incredible, that, or maybe just speaks to the small range of creativity that Hollywood has. Is that obviously Michael B. Jordan and Chadwick Boseman were paired together for Black Panther, but they also played the same role on All My Children back like 18 years ago. Where I watched this clip. He played a character. Chadwick Boseman played a character named Reggie for one episode, and then I think he like didn't like. It's a very very cliched like drug addict part, and I think he
Right.
was. I don't want to do this. And then they recast the role, and it turned out to be Michael B. Jordan, who was recast as this character Reggie, who played that character for numerous episodes. So it's just kind of funny how they were linked even back then.
Yeah,
Again,
they were kind of fated to
yeah,
be together in some way.
yeah. It's kind of interesting that kind of that the ties that some of these actors have coming up, and then when they hit the pinnacle, right, $1 billion movie.
So can we talk about how you have seen All My Children, but yet Black
Well,
Panther has
okay,
eluded you? I feel like the viewers that we have, all two of them
yeah.
should know why you chose to watch soap operas over comic book movies.
So I only found this clip because of his.
Sure. I know that's
So
okay. You
I
can
would
admit it.
not have I would not have made this connection about All My Children, but then someone was like, "Did you know that Michael B. Jordan and him were actually? It's not Black Panther was not the first time they worked together." And I was like, "I have no idea."
Oh, fine. You were like, I know what it is. Season 26, episode 3.
Yeah, I mean, what's also funny is that like for many many actors, it always kind of comes back to All My Children. Like you can find something that they did that they want like buried for the rest of their careers because it's so embarrassing and over the top, where they're robbing a bank or playing someone who's dying. I don't know, has a sick child or a sick dog or I don't know, sick grandmother, whatever, a sick something, and it's a very dramatic one episode guest appearance.
Yeah, I mean,
But,
a
you know,
lot of actors, and he like many actors, had a bit part in Law and Order. I
yeah,
feel like
yeah, that's another big.
everybody shows up at Law and Order at some point. But I was surprised to look back and just notice all the shows that he was in that I watched from start to finish. Like he was in Justified, which was a great show. He was also in Fringe, which is one of my favorites. But these are one episode arcs that he had. Um, but it's still, I still think he, kind of etched out a really cool career for himself. I think that if I had to pick, which would probably be the pick of many, my favorite role of his would be Black Panther, simply because he had many movies to really flesh that out, and he did such a good job with it. I think that movie is one of the better ones in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And one of these days, I'll get you to watch it.
I mean, I have now that I have Disney Plus, or currently have Disney Plus. I have been meaning to watch it because it was obviously such a big cultural event
Right.
when it came out, and that it was nominated for, what was it, like the first Marvel movie to be nominated for Best Picture, and
It did win a bunch of MTV Movie Awards for whatever that's worth. But
well, that, I mean, those I usually never miss. So best, did it win Best Kiss or no
I missed that episode, but
uh, uh, yeah, I don't know.
that
So
telecast rather.
it's, and I think like I like Ryan Coogler. So again, I'm always a little hesitant to like that genre, but it seems like one I can kind of go in from what everyone's been telling me. I can go into it without any real prior knowledge of much of anything else.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true.
Because he debuted in like a Captain America movie, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, initially he, was more like kind of, I mean, he was the main part, but initially he came out in an earlier film, and like his dad was running the country, but spoiler alert, the dad gets assassinated, and then he kind of takes over from there, and
Okay.
after that is where Black Panther takes off. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been cool the way that so many people are sharing photos of like their children going to when they went to the theater to see it, or representation definitely does matter in that respect, as we also saw with things like Captain Marvel and the Wonder Woman series on the Warner Brothers side, DC side. So it definitely feels like a very touchstone cultural movie. that everyone at least took notice of, whether or not, in my case, I hadn't seen it. I still haven't seen it, but
It was a very cultural movie. Yeah, like there's also, in addition to the fact that he's the star and Michael B. Jordan is in it as well, there's also the fact that there's a lot of really strong female characters in that movie. It's very, very well rounded. And, he being the star of it, again, there's a lot of more showy performances around him, but he does a good job in any movie he does of playing the strong, resilient kind of, quiet type of acting, even if the person he's playing isn't necessarily quiet, like James Brown certainly wasn't, but you get the idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that also probably helps him kind of fall into a lot of those roles, because when you mentioned 42, when that came out, I feel like he was definitely not like an above the title star,
No, not at that point, no.
No, it like I don't think it said like introducing Chadwick Boseman or anything like that. But I mean, I definitely think that it was about it, the movie. The subject, Jackie Robinson, was the selling point. I know Harrison Ford was in there in a supporting role for the Brooklyn Dodgers, but it was definitely.
And he was obviously very reliable in those types of roles, which is probably why he kept. I mean, he obviously liked them, and he was obviously well liked for them. Because he was obviously a reliable actor who they could count on. And, he kept doing them. I mean, I guess he kind of figured, as long as these projects are rolling off the conveyor belt, I might as well do them. And he did a good job in them. Now, the movies as a whole might not win any awards, but you could always count on him to deliver the goods, which makes the whole thing sad. You wish that he would have gone on. I feel like he would have gone on to be a much more seasoned actor as he got older. But do you have any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I mean, just that it is obviously definitely a tragedy, and that I don't think any there are going to be many ways that people are going to be able to honor him going forward. And if we talked about the recasting, if that happens, I wouldn't also hold that against Disney or anyone like that. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to do that. It doesn't make them the bad guys either.
It would have been a cool thing. You can't do that now because Michael B. Jordan rather, was in the other movie. But
take over.
If he hadn't been in it, I would have definitely gone with somebody like that. Obviously you can't do that now, but it'll be interesting to see how they move forward. I'm sure that they will do a moving tribute to him at some point, however they decide to do it, whether it be recasting or not. So
absolutely, yeah.
Well, we thank you for joining us. Before we go, I'll just say, our thoughts and condolences go out to his family and friends, and his movies will live on. We thank you for joining us, and tune in next week when we cover documentaries. Thank you.